What's up everybody, my name is Wreck-It Rob and it is time to wreck some ass. Today we're going to be going over the Second Awakening that's recently been updated in Summoner's War. Now at the moment that I'm recording this video, the Second Awakening only applies to 4 monsters: the Pixie, the Fairy, the Warbear, and the Inugami. These 4 monsters were alright in the beginning of the game, but once you get towards the middle or end of the game, you really don't have as much use for them. Well, thanks to the Dimensional Hole update, that all changed. However, with this awakening, there's also a fair amount of winners and losers with it. And today I'm going to be going over exactly why I think they're winners and why I think they're losers, as well as for beginning players how you actually get these in the first place. Now, in my opinion, the winning monsters are the Wind Warbear, the Water Inugami, Fire Inugami, the Water Warbear, and Fire Warbear, the Wind Inugami, Fire Pixie, Wind Pixie, Light Pixie, and the Light Fairy. Now everybody already knew that the Wind Warbear was fairly good with its ability called Clean Shot. However, its other 2 skills were fairly lackluster. Thanks to the update though, Thrash now lowers the attack bar by 25% and upgrades the crouch from 30 to 35% healing and 3 turns of raised defense. This turned a monster that was already really good but not as great in in-game into a monster that you could honestly take as far into the game as you really want to, honestly into the arena, and do massive amounts of damage to singular opponents. Next we have the Water Inugami. The Water Inugami is actually one of my favorites. So with its final skill, before you would attack and then you would counterattack for that next turn after that. However, what they did with the Water Inugami is they took that final skill and instead of having it activate every turn, it's actually a passive. So anytime you attack on your turn, you then counterattack whenever somebody hits you. So if you attack every round on your turn, you're essentially counterattacking anytime you're hit. Another great thing they added is they upgraded his team up ability. So now instead of just 1 ally helping you, it scales to your defense, all the way up to 3 allies. Next we have the Fire Inugami. The Fire Inugami was already a great attacker, but now with its Second Awakening, it adds an additional ally to its team up ability, as well as decreasing skill cooldown by 1 with Annihilate. Next up is the Water Warbear, which in my opinion is the most powerful monster thanks to this update. Now this monster's abilities were okay before the update, but now they're incredible. With the update, his second ability Crouch now heals 35% of his health and has a stacking effect, increasing his HP by 20% each time it's used up to a total of 5 times, meaning that you can effectively double the HP of this monster throughout a battle, as well as adding a 50% chance that you're going to counterattack anytime that you are hit, as added on to his passive Spirit's Will. And next up for the Warbears, we have the Fire Warbear. Now with the Fire Warbear, his chance to reduce the attack bar by 25% go up from 50 to 85%, and his damage is doubled anytime he's counterattacking. Also added on is a 50% chance to provoke according to Roar. Now this I think is such a smart monster to have, because if you're using his counterattacking ability, you're effectively hitting everyone who hits you for double your normal damage, and that I think is really powerful. Next up we have the Second Awakening for the Wind Inugami. Now the Wind Inugami was fairly straightforward. It didn't add anything too crazy. All that it really did was on scratch, it got rid of the 50% chance to decrease the defense for a few turns, and it made it that anytime you use scratch, you're constantly decreasing their defense for 2 turns. And my favorite part, it now scales Scratch and Seize according to your defense, making this monster's attacks so much more powerful, especially if it's loaded up with fully guard runes. Coming up next, we have the Second Awakening for the Fire Pixie. Now for the Fire Pixie, on Spirit Ball, it increases the chance to land a glancing hit to 75% on your opponents, as well as adding 2 turns of continuous damage. And on Incinerate, and this took me a while to actually understand, it attacks as well as blows up the continuous damage. This monster I think is great if you have a team built around continuous damage, because you can then load a monster up with as much continuous damage as you want, and then blow that all up with 1 fell swoop with the Fire Pixie. Up next for the Pixies, we have the Wind Pixie Awakening. Now for the Wind Pixie, her Spirit Ball is now upgraded to increase the glancing hit chance on the opponent to 75%, as well as absorbing 15% of the attack bar. It then also gets rid of the 80% chance to decrease the attack speed on Decelerate, and adds an 80% chance to absorb their attack bar by 10%. This is honestly a really good monster for attack bar control, which is something that I'm really into and I really enjoy doing. Switching over to fairies, we have the Light Fairy. Now the Light Fairy has the only change to any of the fairies that I actually enjoy. It changes the Light Fairy's Purify to, instead of scaling to attack power, it now just does 20% of your max HP, which is transferred to your ally, as well as adding 2 turns of immunity to Holy Shield. Now to me, I feel like the Light Fairy is honestly the only fairy worth having, at least from a healing standpoint. You could make a case for the Fire Fairy or the Dark Fairy for attacking purposes, but with their current attack stats, I don't really think that that's possible to make them good monsters for that. Now moving on from the winners, we have the situational use monsters. Now, in my opinion, for the first situational monster, it has to go to the Light Warbear. If you were to equip the Light Warbear with straight energy runes, you could deal massive amounts of damage to singular opponents. However, you'd also have to make sure that you could heal the Warbear, otherwise he would just die after one shot. His crouch ability does make up for this in a little bit, healing 35% initially as well as 15% for 2 turns. But seeing as the big of a hit that you just took, I feel like you'd have to be very careful when using this so as not to just have him killed outright. The next situational use I would give to the Dark Warbear, actually. Honestly, the Dark Warbear could be used as a great stunner, especially if you outfitted him in good Despair runes. I mean, not only does he have a 50% chance to stun on a critical hit, but he also has a 20% boost to critical hit, and he has attack bar control on Thrash and Roar. I feel like with the right runes and team, you could make him a great addition to your lineup. My last situational monster is the Dark Fairy, and I'm really only throwing him in here because I don't want to give nothing but hate to the fairies except for the Light Fairy, but I mean, come on, they're trash. Personally, I dislike all the fairies. Some have a few good changes, but the rest of them I don't want at all. The Dark Fairy, however, could be used as an okay stunner. So say if you were to throw him in a lineup with the Dark Warbear, you could have a pretty decent stunning team. Now, in my opinion, there is one clear winner for the Second Awakening, and that would be the Warbear. All of his awakenings are incredibly powerful, especially the water and fire, which I can't wait to use. Coupling that with an already powerful Wind Warbear and the very good situational Light and Dark Warbears, all of his awakenings are just really solid. And of course, with every winner, there must be a loser. And in my mind, that loser is the Fairy. I didn't want to give all the hate to the Fairy, so I did throw in the Dark Fairy for situational. But honestly, the only Fairy that I'm looking forward to using is going to be the Light Fairy, which personally, I've never even seen in my game yet. However, once I do find the Light Fairy, I will attempt to throw her into some lineup and see how she works, but I'm a little wary of just touching that monster at all. Now, to all new summoners, you're probably wondering how to actually perform these awakenings. Well, reading directly from the Second Awakening page, certain monsters can increase their stats through Second Awakening. Second Awakening can be performed when the target monster has all of its skills leveled up to max and has maximum Secondary Awakening XP. With Secondary Awakening, the monster's appearance transforms and the stats and skills get enhanced. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take the monster that you want and you're going to have to awaken it. You're then going to have to level up all of its skills completely. After you've maxed out all of its skills, you're going to take that monster and you're going to go to the Dimension Hole. In the Dimension Hole, you can either go to Karzan or Illunia. In Karzan, you have the Inugami and the Warbear. Meanwhile, in Illunia, you have the Pixie and the Fairy. There are 5 levels to each one of these dungeons, getting significantly harder as you go up the levels. Now, new summoners, be warned, you can only get here after you've already beaten all the way through the Chiruka Remains. They're also incredibly hard to beat. Personally, I'm a level 37 and I can only clear the first level. And don't think that this is going to be a fast process at all, because clearing the first level will only grant you 0.3% XP. This means that if you're able to farm the first level, it will take you about 2.5 weeks in order to awaken your monster. But with this patience and willingness to grind, you're going to wind up with some of the most powerful monsters in the game, which you can obtain the base form of right at the beginning of the game. Now, I am only mid-game right now, so I have not done the Second Awakening of any of the monsters yet. I'm currently working on a Water Inugami, which I am very excited to see awakened. And when I do that, I will be sure to record it and show you guys. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to wreck that like button down below, as well as subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later!